Ever stop to think about how, like, a teeny tiny mistake can, like, totally blow up into something massive? We're talking, like, mistakes that cost a fortune, ground planes, even change people's lives, like, forever. Crazy, right?
Absolutely. It's remarkable how these seemingly insignificant slip-ups can snowball into something so significant. And that's precisely what we're exploring today, taking a deep dive into a collection of examples that really highlight this phenomenon.
And we're drawing these examples from the work of Salvador Darica. He's like a leading voice in global communication. And what's so interesting about his insights is that they show just how crucial accuracy and attention to detail can be, like across all these different fields,
No,
really.
precisely. What Salvador Ordorica emphasizes is that these errors can pop up in the most surprising places, often with dramatic consequences. So today, we're on a mission to kind of uncover those unexpected ways that little mistakes can have these huge ramifications. You ready to dive in?
Absolutely. Let's get into it. And let's
Yeah.
start with a story, a real sobering one, actually. You familiar with Willie Ramirez? This happened back in 1980 in Florida.
Oh, yes, a tragic case. A stark reminder of how vital clear communication is, especially in healthcare settings. Willie was brought into a hospital, and his family, they were speaking Spanish, and they used the word intoxicado to describe his condition.
Right, intoxicado. Now, as Salvador Ordorica has pointed out, that word doesn't necessarily mean like drunk. Right, it can often mean poisoned or having had a bad reaction to something.
Exactly. And this is where the danger of assuming direct translation comes in, something Salvador Ordorica talks about a lot. The medical staff, well, they interpreted intoxicado as intoxicated, meaning drunk.
And that one word, that misinterpretation led to doctors missing the actual problem, which was a cerebral hemorrhage.
A truly devastating oversight with life-altering consequences for Willie Ramirez, who ended up permanently paralyzed because of the misdiagnosis.
It's heartbreaking. And to make matters worse, the hospital ended up facing a massive lawsuit, a $71 million settlement.
It's a stark illustration of the profound impact that a single misinterpreted word can have, both on a human level and in terms of financial repercussions.
It really makes you think about the weight of words, doesn't it? Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit from a human tragedy to a financial blunder of epic proportions. Ever heard of the most expensive typo in history?
Oh, are you talking about the Japanese trader who, well, let's just say he had a rather costly slip of the finger?
That's the one. This guy was trying to sell, what was it, one share for 610,000 yen?
That was his intention, yes, a standard transaction. But in a moment of haste, perhaps a bit of a fumble on the keyboard, he accidentally swapped the numbers.
So instead of selling one share for a lot of money, he ended up selling 610,000 shares for like next to nothing, right?
You got it, 1 yen per share. And before anyone could catch the error, it was done. Executed by the system in milliseconds. Poof, $343 million. Gone.
Just like that. It's almost unbelievable how fast these digital transactions happen and how a simple typo can lead to such colossal losses.
It emphasizes the need for extra vigilance and fail-safe mechanisms in these systems, especially with the sheer speed and volume of transactions happening today.
Absolutely. From a misplaced digit to a missing hyphen. Speaking of, let's talk about NASA's Mariner 1 mission.
Ah, yes, the infamous missing hyphen. They call it the most expensive hyphen in history, and for good reason.
This was back in 1962. NASA was aiming to reach Venus. But just minutes after launch, things went very wrong, didn't they?
The spacecraft veered off course, and it all boiled down to a single missing hyphen in the guidance system code. One tiny punctuation mark. Can you imagine?
It's incredible, really. That missing hyphen messed up the entire navigation system, and they had to self-destruct the spacecraft just 5 minutes after launch.
It was a costly mistake, $150 million back then, which is like well over $1 billion today, if you adjust for inflation.
It really does make you realize how even the smallest detail can be mission critical, especially when you're dealing with something as complex as space exploration.
And it underscores the need for meticulous code reviews and testing protocols to catch these seemingly minor errors before they have such astronomical consequences.
Okay, let's bring things back down to Earth, but stay in the realm of potentially catastrophic errors. Have you heard about the Gimli glider? This was Air Canada Flight 143.
Oh, yes. That was a remarkable incident, a chilling reminder of how critical unit conversions are, especially when you're dealing with fuel calculations for an airplane.
The ground crew, they made a mistake using gallons instead of kilograms when calculating the fuel load.
A simple yet crucial error. It resulted in the Boeing 767 taking off with less than half the fuel it needed for the journey. Can you imagine the horror when both engines cut out at 41,000 feet?
Sends chills down my spine just thinking about it. Total engine failure at cruising altitude. I mean, what do you even do?
It's a nightmare scenario for any pilot. But the crew on that flight, they remained incredibly calm and resourceful. They managed to glide the plane to a landing on a former airstrip.
A former airstrip that had been converted into a drag racing track, no less. It's a testament to the skill of those pilots, turning a potential disaster into a miraculous landing.
Absolutely. It's a story that highlights the importance of human expertise and quick thinking, even in the face of technological errors.
Right. So we've seen how a missing hyphen can ground a spacecraft, and a unit conversion error can almost bring down a plane. Let's talk about another technological slip-up with huge financial implications.
Are you thinking about the Knight Capital Group incident back in 2012?
That's the one. This was a case where a routine software update went horribly wrong.
It all stemmed from some outdated code that wasn't completely removed during the update process. And this seemingly harmless leftover code ended up wreaking havoc on their trading systems.
Yeah, like unleashing a rogue algorithm that started making thousands of random trades per second. Trades that made absolutely no sense.
And it happened so fast. Within 45 minutes, they lost a staggering $440 million. It almost bankrupted the entire company.
All because of a single line of forgotten code. It's a scary thought, isn't it? How something so small can have such a massive and rapid impact.
It really underlines the importance of thorough testing and making sure that any outdated systems are properly decommissioned. Okay, we've talked about some pretty intense examples. Maybe we could shift gears a little, explore something a bit more lighthearted, though still thought-provoking.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Kummerspeck. Do you know this word?
Ah, Kummerspeck. It's German.
It is. And it translates literally to, get this, grief bacon.
Grief bacon. That's pretty great. What does it mean?
It refers to the weight you gain from emotional eating, comfort food after a breakup,
Yeah.
pizza during a stressful time, things like that.
That's fantastic. I love how language can so perfectly capture these universal human experiences.
Right. And it's a reminder that not all errors have to be catastrophic. Sometimes they just result in a little extra grief bacon. Speaking of misunderstandings, what do you think about when you hear the song Macarena?
Oh man, that song. It's like instantly takes you back to the 90s, right? Everyone dancing, doing those hand motions. It's such a happy, catchy tune.
It is super catchy. But have you ever really listened to the lyrics?
Well, not closely, no. It's mostly in Spanish, right?
It is. And it turns out the lyrics tell a story about a woman cheating on her boyfriend with two of his friends. Pretty wild, huh?
Wait, really? That's not what I expected. It's funny how we can totally miss the meaning of something, especially if it's in a different language.
And maybe sometimes ignorance is bliss, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you're just trying to enjoy a catchy tune. But it does make you think about the stories behind the things we consume, the things we might be missing.
It definitely underscores the importance of understanding context and, well, not taking things at face value. It seems like a recurring theme today is that these small details, these seemingly insignificant errors, they can have a ripple effect, sometimes leading to really big consequences.
Totally. From a missing hyphen to a mistranslated word to a forgotten line of code, it's a reminder to be diligent, to pay attention, and to double-check our work, no matter how small the task might seem.
Especially in a world that's so interconnected, where information travels so fast, the potential for these small errors to escalate is, well, it's something we need to be mindful of. As Salvador Ordorica points out, these kinds of mistakes can have global implications.
Absolutely. So, listener, we leave you with this thought. Have you ever made a seemingly small mistake that turned out to have a big impact? What did you learn from it? And how can you be more mindful of those tiny details that can sometimes make all the difference? If you're interested in learning more about avoiding these costly international mistakes, I highly recommend checking out Salvador Ordorica. He's got a great YouTube channel called Translation Tales. It's a really engaging way to learn about the nuances of global communication and how to avoid those pitfalls that we've been talking about today.
It's definitely worth checking out. He does a fantastic job of blending expert insights with humor. And trust me, learning from his stories is a lot less painful than making those mistakes yourself.
Couldn't agree more. So until our next deep dive, stay curious, stay vigilant, and keep an eye out for those seemingly insignificant details. They might just be more important than you think.